In search of sanity. Great for rising. Thanks for once again allowing Lily Bear to take you beneath the crust. I'm so glad you're back. So many times I see or hear things that make no sense at all. It's totally insane. It makes me want to go in search of sanity. Come, join me, and let's go together in search of sanity on DEI. DEI, pre and post. Let's look at the conditions of blacks in America pre-DEI and post-DEI. Ready? Quoting an online source. Hours after taking office, President Donald Trump signed an order banning DEI, the DEI programs, all across the federal government. President Trump also ordered a review of federal grants to make sure they are not being used to finance any DEI initiatives. President Trump also took aim at a nearly 60-year-old executive order undoing anti-discrimination rules enacted by President Lyndon Johnson in the civil rights era. And many blacks are upset about President Trump banning DEI. They are showing outrage through social media and by any means available. Some blacks are boycotting businesses that have said they will cancel DEI. Fire. Let's look at blacks in America pre-DEI. Pre-DEI, before DEI, let's look at blacks in America. 1866. The 1866 Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment guaranteed that African Americans were eligible to own land. Black homesteaders used the land to build new lives in which they owned the land they worked, provided for their families, and educated their children. Land ownership. Rural farmland. In 1910, less than 50 years after blacks were given the rights to own land, blacks owned 16 to 19 million acres of farmland. Now this is just farmland, not other land. Business. In 1900 to 1930, the phrase golden age of black entrepreneurship was coined by historian Juliet Walker. The most rapid growth, listen to me good, the most rapid growth increase of black entrepreneurship came in the early 20th century, where there were tens of thousands of black-owned businesses. Blacks established a black belt on the south side of Chicago. By 1937, there were about 2,500 jobs on the south side of Chicago. Not the whole Chicago, not the whole America. On the south side, that one area, there were 25,000 jobs, thereabouts. Blacks were in every aspect of business, the most prominent being newspaper, beauty, insurance, funeral parlors, and bakers. Black women owned their own beauty shops, or they worked out of other black women beauty shops. Black men owned their own barbershops, or they worked out of other black men barbershops. Blacks also owned restaurants, corner stores, nightclubs, grocery stores, and on. Blacks owned almost all, if not all, of the businesses in black neighborhoods. Pre-DEI, from the early 1900s through the early 1960s, black businesses were doing so well that the term double-duty dollar was used. Education. Just 2 years after slavery, a small church known as Tolson Chapel was at the center of local blacks' efforts to educate themselves and their children. African American Methodists built Tolson's Chapel in 1866. This was in Sharpsburg, Maryland, just 2 years after the end of slavery, which was in 1864. African Americans faced significant challenges in that effort to create schools during Reconstruction. One problem was a shortage of qualified teachers. In the early years of Reconstruction, local African Americans who could read and write shared their knowledge with family, friends, and neighbors. In other words, each one taught one. The black community was so enthused about learning in Sharpsburg that the Freedmen's Bureau twice assigned a teacher to the small town in western Maryland. Sharpsburg couldn't afford to pay teachers, so the Freedmen's Bureau stepped up by sending in teachers that the Freedmen's Bureau paid a salary to. Now, y'all keep in mind, we're talking pre-DEI, right? The Penn State School in South Carolina. These are some of the schools that were started by black people during the pre-DEI. The Penn School in South Carolina. In 1862, St. Helena Island, South Carolina, the Penn School served the population of emancipated African Americans that remained on the island. Roanoke Island's Freedmen's Colony, South Carolina. In 1862, Martha Cullis, a formerly enslaved laborer, opened the first school for freed peoples in the colony. It served 120 students a day. This was in 1862. Camp Nelson, Kentucky. After the closure of Camp Nelson, this was at the end of the war, Reverend Fee raised funds to purchase the property and opened a school named the Area Academy in 1866. The academy catered to black and white students and offered primary education, training, and aspiring teachers and industrial education. The school lasted 36 years on its own before it was ultimately incorporated into the Commonwealth of Kentucky in 1902. There are many more schools that were started by blacks pre-DEI. I'm going to name a few. For time's sake, I'm not going to go into details on them. Lockwood House and Storer College, West Virginia, Howard School, Tennessee, Burrell School, Alabama, Alcorn State University, Mississippi, McDonough School, number 6, Louisiana, Peel Museum and Frederick Douglass High School, Maryland. Those were some different schools. Now let's look at a few black colleges that were started pre-DEI. Cheyney University. Cheyney University was established on February the 25th, 1837 through the behest of Richard Humphreys. Cheyney University is the first institution of higher learning for African Americans. At its founding in 1837, the university was named the African Institute that later became the Cheyney University. Cheyney University was the first HBCU in the U.S. to issue degrees to African Americans. This happened in 1913. Cheyney University was issuing degrees to black Americans from a black college. Wilberforce University. Wilberforce University is the nation's oldest private historically black university owned and operated by African Americans. The oldest private historically black university owned and operated by African Americans. Its roots trace back to its founding in 1856, a period of American history marred by the physical bondage of people of African descent. It was also a period when the education of African Americans were not only socially prohibited, but it was illegal. Did you hear that? Wilberforce University, it was illegal. But they built it. Voorhees, I guess that's how you pronounce it. Voorhees University. Voorhees University is the historically black college founded in 1897 by Elizabeth Evelyn Wright Menifee. Now, this is a quote from a guy named Stowell. Now, I'm going to put in the description of the podcast, I'm going to put in the description links to what I'm saying. So I'm quoting Stonewall. Washerwomen shared their earnings. Sunday school children gave their pennies, and others gave their hard-earned dollars that the work of the school might go on and that their children might have their chance. Did you hear that? Washerwomen, everybody. Back to the quote. One school reported $19,000 subscribed by colored people in the just poverty-stricken, $1,900. You know what that would equate to today? Back to the quote. One school reported 1,900 subscribed by colored people in the direst poverty, and all of it paid in full to the very last nickel. Many other subscriptions, varying in amounts, were made and paid. There seemed to be no sacrifice too great for these humble people who, out of the depths, were for the first time started on the path of enlightenment. This is what Stowell said in the quote. Now, I encourage you to research black schools and colleges started pre-DEI if you're so inclined. Take note of how many of the young men and women who were educated, now take note of this when you're doing your research, of how many of the young men and women who were educated at these pre-DEI schools stayed on to educate others in the community. Reconstruction was a time when black communities started focusing more on their education. Blacks took the initiative and purchased land, constructed buildings, and raised money to hire teachers by any means necessary. That's what they're saying. By 1869, blacks outnumbered whites who were teaching black people in the South. Now, this is just the South. They outnumbered. Jim Crow. Now, we know about Jim Crow. I'm not going to get into Jim Crow, what it is and all that, because by now I think we know about Jim Crow. If not, go ahead and research Jim Crow. But what I do want to say is this. Do you know that under Jim Crow, the most rapid growth of black businesses came in the earliest 20th century? Did you hear me? Under Jim Crow, the most rapid growth of black businesses came about. Now, I have a podcast called What Was Meant for Evil. I talk more about this. Be on the lookout. Early growth and challenges. Within 2 decades of the abolition of slavery, around 1885, African Americans established several thousand successful businesses, particularly in communities that were exclusively black. The North Carolina Mutual and Provident Association was founded in 1898 as a for-profit entity selling life insurance catering to the black community. Charles Clinton Spaulding, North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company. The North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company was founded by Charles Clinton Spaulding, and in 1900 to 1952, under Charles Clinton Spaulding's management, the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company on Durham's Black Wall Street grew into the largest black-owned business in the country. E.E. Ward Moving and Storage. E.E. Ward Moving and Storage is the oldest continuously operating black-owned business in the United States. It was founded in 1881 by John T. Ward. John T. Ward was a conductor on the Underground Railroad, and so was his son William. Charles Frederick Page. Charles Frederick Page of Pineville, Louisiana, was an African-American inventor who patented an airship in 1906. He called it an airship then. We would call it an airplane now. Now, this was before the Wright brothers, and this was before DEI. C.R. Patterson, 1893. C.R. Patterson started C.R. Patterson and Sons, a successful car business. He sold luxury vehicles. This was about 10 years before Ford, and it was before DEI. Annie Turnbow Malone. Pearl College was a cosmetology school and training center founded by Annie Turnbow Malone in 1918. It was the first black school in the United States to focus on teaching black cosmetology. Not only did Annie Turnbow Malone start her Pearl School in the USA, but Annie Turnbow Malone also started extensions of her Pearl School in Africa. Bessie Coleman. Bessie Coleman earned her pilot license in 1921. Janet Harmon Bragg. In 1943, aviator Janet Harmon Bragg was the first African American woman to receive a commercial pilot license. Aviator Janet Harmon Bragg enrolled in the Aeronautical University. This was a ground school in 1933. When aviator Janet Harmon Bragg wasn't allowed to fly from White's airfields, aviator Janet Harmon Bragg and her classmates formed the Challenger Aero Club. They purchased land in the all-black towns of Robbins, Illinois, and built their own airfield. According to my research, black businesses started a rapid decline in 1965. I wonder what happened in 1965. DEI. Now let's talk about DEI. And I'm quoting an online source. The civil rights movement was a social movement in the United States from 1954 to 1968, which aimed to abolish legalized racial segregation, discrimination, and disenfranchisement in the country, which most commonly affected African Americans. The Civil Rights Acts of 1964 prohibited discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. In September 1965, President Lyndon Johnson issued Executive Order 11246, which required government employees to hire without regard to race, religion, and national origin, and take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and that employees are treated during employment without regard to race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Let's look at blacks post-DEI. Land ownership, rural farmland. By 1997, blacks owned only 2.7 million acres of farmland. The AELOS stated, and I quote, blacks own less than 1% of all privately owned rural land. Today, 2016. Now, blacks only own 2.9 million acres, up 0.32%. So tell me again why we are so up in arms about DEI cancellation. As a matter of fact, in 2017, blacks own less than 8 million overall acres and less than 2 million farm acres. This is post-DEI. In 1910, pre-DEI, blacks owned 16 to 19 million acres of farmland. And that 19 million to 16 million acres of farmland, it doesn't include non-farmland. It wasn't talking about non-farmland. But see, now, including farmland and non-farmland, blacks own less than 8 million acres of land. It has been said that the top 5 landowners in America, white men, own more than all 42 million blacks in America combined. 5 men, 42 million. Combine those 42 million blacks' land, and 5 people have more land than the 42 million blacks in America. This is post-DEI. So tell me again why we're upset that the president banned DEI. In 1920, 925,000 blacks owned farms. By 1975, just 45,000 blacks own farms. That's less than 2% of farmland. Now, this is worth repeating. In 2017, blacks own less than 8 million overall acres and less than 2 million farm acres, from 16 to 19 million down to 2 million. In 2022, the Ag Census counted 46,738 blacks. They call them producers, because they work in the farm. 46,738 black producers involved in decision making for 32,653 U.S. farms. The number of black producers decreased 4% from 2017. The number of black operated farms declined 8% between 2017 and 2022. See, I'm still waiting to figure out why are we so upset that the president banned DEI. 42 million blacks own about 0.33% of American land. Not 33%, 0.33%. Businesses. The most rapid growth increase of black entrepreneurship came in early 20th century, where there were tens of thousands of black-owned businesses. Look at the numbers now. Between 1960 and 1980, minority-owned personal service businesses decreased by 49.1% between 1960 and 1980. Pre-DEI, blacks were in every aspect of business. Now, I said that before, but I'm going to repeat this. The most prominent being newspapers, beauty, insurance, funeral parlors, and bankers. Black women own their own beauty shops or worked out of other black beauty shops. Black men own their own barbershops or worked out of other black men barbershops. Now, many blacks either rent a spot and set up business or rent a booth in a non-black owned beauty or barbershop. Pre-DEI, blacks owned almost, if not all, of the businesses in our neighborhoods. Post-DEI, blacks are hard-pressed to find black businesses, black ownership, black businesses in the black neighborhood. Where is the pre-DEI double duty dollar? Where is it? Post-DEI, a dollar is estimated to circulate. This is post-DEI. A dollar is estimated to circulate within the black community for about 6 hours before it leaves, compared to 20 days in the Jewish community and 30 days in the Asian community. Now, I don't know how to verify that, but I do know that based on the mostly non-black businesses in the black community that are owned by non-black people who don't live in the black community, this seems fair to say. Reconstruction was a time when black communities started focusing more on their education. Blacks took the initiative and purchased land, constructed buildings, and raised money to hire teachers. Post-DEI, many blacks complain about the school and the education, but never do anything to build schools or educate our children. By 1869, blacks outnumbered whites who were teaching black people in the South. Look at the post-DEI. Look at the ratio. Blacks, along with the Freedmen's Bureau, established over 3,000 schools in the South. Now, that's just in the South. How many schools have the post-DEI blacks established? Many of the young men and women who were educated stayed on to educate others in the community. Look at the black flight from black neighborhoods. Let's look at black status post-DEI. After DEI. More recently, the DEI concepts have moved beyond the discrimination to include diversity, equity, and inclusion. Most recently, the DEI concept have moved beyond discrimination to include diversity, equity, and inclusion as motives for preferring historically underrepresented groups. According to Black Enterprise, only 4% of DEI positions in the workforce have gone to black people, and the percentage is equally low in other areas covered under DEI. So what are we upset for? DEI benefits white women more than any other demographics. It also benefits white men, Asians, transgender, and on and on. DEI offers very little benefits for blacks who fought, bled, and died for the DEI. You even have black women and some black men advocating for the white woman and DEI. She doesn't need you advocating for her, she's getting hers. But these black women and men are actually saying that white women were and is more discriminated against than black men. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Black people saying that black men are freer than white women. People, the brainwashing is real. The brainwashing is real. Black men are freer than white women. It's often said by black people who are in leadership positions. Nothing is more frightening than a follower in a leadership position. Nothing. Now, I have a podcast on this. In this podcast, I tried to figure out what the black men of Rosewood would say about the oppressed white woman as compared to the free black man. What about Emmett Till? What do you think Emmett Till would say about that? What about Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Yusef Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise? What do you think they would say about the black man being more free than the oppressed white woman? Stay tuned. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. Support our youth. Reach out to the young brother who dropped the beats. Spacemanfalcon at gmail.com. Support our youth in any way you can. Keep on churning till the butter comes. Albert C. Richardson, a black man, patent the butter churn U.S. patent number 446470, February 17th, 1891. I'm Lily Bayer. I'm just trying to create a dialogue. I leave you with this. If they close my book, you remember my story. Black man, you allowed DEI to punk you out. Why did you do it? A Nat Turner Runner production. Lock and load. Lily Bayer. Be encouraged.